In 2 Corinthians 12:10, the Apostle Paul writes this. He says, "That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness, in insults, in hardship, in persecution, in difficulty. For when I am weak, I am strong." So we might wonder when we hear this, what in the world is Paul talking about? Because at first glance, it sounds pretty strange to us. Who delights in things like weakness and hardship? Well, we're going to unpack that. But the first thing I want to point out here is just how important it is to note that Paul, this amazing hero of faith in the New Testament, is so honest about the fact that life is hard and that faith is hard even for a person like him. And that sets such a great example for us to know that faith doesn't mean we somehow become perfect. And lets us know that when our life is hard and when our faith is hard, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with us, but that that's a normal part of life. But what Paul is really getting at here is our tendency to take on life by our own strength, forgetting to let God lead and empower us. And that is not the way that we are designed by God to live this life. And when we do that, when we go it alone, we wear down physically, emotionally, spiritually. We are finite beings, and the well inside us of all of those things eventually runs dry. So what Paul is pointing out is that something good can happen in the midst of our weakness and in our heart and the hard times that we face in life and in faith. And what he's saying is that it can cause us to cling to God and to begin to operate once again out of God's strength and not our own. And that's really the way that we should be operating all of the time. So Paul is saying that he delights here, not in the hard things that are happening, but in the correction that his weakness and those difficulties bring to his life. That's what he means when he says, when I'm weak, I am strong. Because he's saying, when I'm weak, that's when I cling to God, rely on him, and his strength shines through. And I think he's really pointing to the glory of God shining through our weakness, because we know that it's God at work and not our own strength at work. So there really are some great encouragements for us here in this verse that seemed so strange to us at first glance. First, if a great man like Paul had struggles, it means it's all right for us to have struggles. It also, this verse means that God can use the hard things that we experience for good in our life. It means that God will supply us even when we are weak. And it means that God can do great things in us and through us, even when we are down. So may we learn to delight in our weakness, just like Paul did.